Oh my God, we're live. What do we do? We're in the green room, everybody. So today we're going to talk about yoga and Pilates in the post-COVID. No, this is the wrong show. We're going to do a pose. All right, well, welcome to DisrupTV. This is the green room. We're going to get ready. We're doing quick introductions with everybody here. So I'm Ray Wang. I'm one of the co-hosts. I'm going to introduce you to Vala, and we're going to talk to Aubrey, and then we're going to go to each one of our guests, and they're going to share a little bit what they're talking about today, and then we'll jump into the live production. So Vala, where you are today?
How you doing? Dialing in from Boston, and this is episode 198. Crawford's actually going to be our 600th interview, so we're doing
crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
We just want no pressure on you at all, but yeah.
Yeah. So this is how Ray and I spend our Fridays. Thank you for tuning in.
That's awesome. And Aubrey, this is her last show that she's producing. I want to thank her for the awesomeness. We'll talk more about that later when we get to the show. So thank you, Aubrey. So where's home right now?
Roseville, California, in the Sacramento suburb. It's not 100 degrees today, I don't think, so I'm excited.
You hit 3 digits. And Francis, what are you talking about today, and where's home? So.
I'm in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I'm talking about the new book I co-authored on leadership.
Woohoo. Awesome. All right. Awesome. And of course, Heather, welcome back. Your 16th appearance. We're going to have some fun with that. So where's home? And what are you talking about today?
My Sweet 16. I am here in Northern New Jersey today, and I am talking about whatever you guys ask me about.
Oh, cool.
Impromptu guest.
Electronic waste and all good things. All not Excellent. Good things, actually.
All not good things, yeah. And then Crawford.
Hey, how are you guys? So I think this is my third lap around the track on the show. So I'm the president of IDC, International Data Corporation. We are one of the largest tech research companies, about 1,100 analysts worldwide in 52 countries, and looking forward to talking about what's going on in tech right now and how our customers are dealing with this global pandemic, both on the IT buyer side and on the supplier side.
Awesome. Well, hey, we're going to kick off soon, and we're going to do a countdown. Aubrey, do the honors, and we're going to go live.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, and 1.
Hello and welcome. Yeah, it is Friday. Yeah. Thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on Twitter at DisrupTV Show. Send Ray, myself, and our distinguished guests your questions using hashtag DisrupTV, and we'll do our best to answer them. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host. He's the CEO, founder of Constellation Research. He's the best-selling author of Disrupting Digital Business, a must-read for everyone. He's a global sought-after keynote speaker, and in my humble opinion, one of the top futurists to follow on Twitter at RWANG0. Welcome, Ray Wang, to DisrupTV.
Hey, thanks a lot. Here with my awesome co-host, Vala Afshar. If you haven't seen him, you haven't been on Twitter. He is the #1 person to follow for CEOs, CMOs, and CIOs in almost every ranking. A author himself, a person that you'll find on business press and business media. And more importantly, he's a keynote speaker, highly sought after and hard to get. So make sure you reach out to him for that. But more importantly, we've been co-hosting, and he's a co-founder of the show with me. We've been co-founding the show for quite some time. And we're getting to some special landmarks and milestones. And of course, with our special guest today. Who do we have today? What's going on, Vala?
Yeah, our special guest actually helped launch DisrupTV. Today is our 600th interview, but our first guest was interview number 2. So talk about one of the founding members of DisrupTV and first ballot Hall of Fame. We have Crawford Del Pratt, who's the president of IDC. Crawford was appointed president of IDC in February of last year. Prior to his current role, he served as IDC's chief operating officer. Throughout his leadership, IDC has established a leading position in the world's most prominent and trusted technology market intelligence provider. Crawford joined IDC in 1989 as a research analyst. Throughout his IDC career, he's grown multiple IDC businesses to industry leadership positions. Crawford is a leading authority in IT industry and has completed extensive research on the structure and evolution of information technology industry. He advises technology business leaders on how to adapt and change. Well, now he's president, so his team advises, but he's still
He's still advising.
Crawford is frequently quoted in publications such as Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, New York Times. You see him on Bloomberg Technology Television. He's everywhere. You can follow him. He's a great follow on Twitter at Craw, C-R-A-W. By the way, it gives you a sense of an early adopter when you can get that handle.
Yeah,
Craw.
you know, I had a band in Scotland offer me money for that, the Crawfords.
Oh, yeah. I tried to get Vala. I couldn't do it. I was too late. So anyway, we want to thank him because when he helped launch Disrupt, he was a chief research officer. Prior appearance, he was a chief operating officer. And now he's president and still gracious enough to share his time with Ray and I. So welcome to DisrupTV, Crawford.
Thank you guys very, very much. It is absolutely my pleasure to be here. I am so thrilled for you guys, and I'm thrilled that this show has taken off the way that it has. It's just great news for you guys. Congratulations.
Hey, thanks a lot. You know, we're really excited to have you here and have you back. You always some awesome insights and wisdom. And, you know, more importantly than ever, that insight and wisdom is being used as we think about where we are in this COVID-19 situation. And when we think about this, there's the pre-pandemic, there's the pandemic, and the post-pandemic phases that are here. When we think about where we were 4 months ago, it was just 4 months ago, if you can believe that, you know, different priorities were in place. So what's changed and what's the sentiment among some of your clients and among the people that you are talking to?
Yeah, so, you know, it's interesting, Ray. You know, the sentiment has definitely evolved. So it is really crazy. I mean, you know, 4 or 5 months ago, we were kind of going into this thing, and we get asked a lot about, you know, how will this likely evolve? And the sort of short answer is, I think these global pandemics, you know, none of us have really any experience, but this is the kind of thing that it starts with a bang and it kind of ends with a whimper. And we're seeing that all over the world. But we've seen clearly 5 stages emerge that have driven different kinds of customer behavior associated with surviving in the pandemic. And the first was really about maintaining business continuity. And that was kind of in the crisis mode. And we think we're kind of at the end of that now, where companies are sort of moving beyond the crisis mode. And unfortunately, they are now moving now into a cost optimization mode. And that cost optimization mode is, look, how do I lean into the cloud? How do I move toward the cloud? But at the same time, I got to hunker down for this thing that just simply isn't going to go away. You know, it's the thing that wouldn't leave. And it's going to be a real challenge. We think we then move into the third stage, which is a business resiliency stage. You know, it's here where you've battened down all the hatches and you're focused on getting through a recession. And, you know, believe it or not, we're already 4 months into this recession in the United States. And a typical recession lasts 9 months to 18 months, somewhere in that kind of a range. So we're kind of, you know, getting into the middle innings now of this. We think that the fourth stage is a targeted investment stage. Here, that's where the investments you make in the recession period and that lean in that we're seeing now into the cloud, we start to see targeted investments that companies are willing to bet on because they can sort of see the sun coming up on the other side. And then eventually we get to the future, the growth phase, the emergence of a new enterprise. And that's kind of the next normal. And, you know, had you asked me 4 months ago what I would say the new normal would likely, when that new normal would come, I would have said, oh, for sure, we'll see that in early 2021. Obviously, this has become a lot more elongated. And like I said, it's going to end with a whimper here. And I think that whimper, you know, we're seeing sort of echo booms associated with that whimper all the way now, you know, likely into mid-2021, likely toward the end of 2021. Depending upon the region of the world. And we are behaving, and the sentiment is different in every region of the world, very, very clearly. I mean, we can talk about that in a moment, but it is striking how different governments and different societies are dealing with this challenge.
Yeah, it is definitely incredible.
That's great. Yeah, so to recap, you know, you're talking about a crisis phase that maybe we've exited. This business continuity was the focus.
Yes.
There's the slowdown phase with focus on ROI, a recessionary phase where operational resiliency may be the focus area, an investment phase where acceleration is potentially a focus, and then hopefully recovery where you're leaning into innovation. And, you know, from my company's point of view, and maybe because you're a SaaS cloud provider, there's a lot of doubling down on innovation. We're seeing some really bullish, we're seeing acceleration of digital transformation for a lot of our clients. Certainly, you've talked about positioning yourself for movement and agility and speed, thinking cloud first mentality. The reason we could pivot 51,000 employees to work from home literally overnight is because we were positioning ourselves for movement and tech into how we worked. Right. So can you talk to us about all these IDC clients? What are they thinking about in terms of their budgets, their investment thesis? Are they doubling down? Are they pulling back? You know, what's your sense? And I know it's geography dependent, industry dependent, size of company dependent.
Yeah. So it's a great point. Now, if you look at a region like Asia Pacific, we've already seen the bottom of our we've done monthly IT spending index surveys throughout this thing since this thing started. And we saw the bottom about a month and a half ago. And we've seen that now start to turn. And we're seeing companies start to say, you know what, we're feeling better about spending and we're feeling better about growth. And, you know, I think it's likely common knowledge that China will likely show a small increase in GDP this year in 2020, which is unheard of compared to any other region. When you look at other regions of the world, you can see that the United States slope is still going down, but it's becoming less down. And Europe is now starting to flatten out. By the way, just as an aside, Europe has done the early indications are Europe has done a phenomenal job controlling this situation. People, you know, we had some really tough situations in places like Spain and in places like Italy, and they've really taken this on, and they've dealt with it in a way that hopefully will serve them very, very well in the future. The United States is a place where we don't have a consistent policy around the United States, and that is we're seeing that challenge right now. So the United States, the IT spending is still moving down. Now, you asked a different question, though. You asked us, you know, what is the most sort of important buying criteria for that next purchase? It's interesting. Innovation. Companies are focused on innovating. They are focused on innovating on platforms where they can share more information. They can engage developers in a virtual way. That translates to things like the cloud. That translates to things like collaboration technologies. Security, privacy, compliance, these are all things that companies are super, super focused on spending right now. But they're also focused on technologies that, in terms of buying criteria, focused on things that drive sticky customer relationships, driving customer satisfaction, driving customer engagement. These are also super, super important. So it's very, very interesting to see that when you move over to the actual kinds of technologies that are interested in spending on, what comes up there? You see things like security top of the list. You see things like collaboration technology. You see things like cloud. These are the things that, you know, companies need to make sure that they can engage their employees and that they can engage their customers in this new world. And I think what's been really fascinating is how technology is enabling people to work in new ways and getting people to be productive. I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there. I believe that it is all about transparency. I have never been I was never confident in myself as a work from home employee. I always kind of felt like, oh my God, you know, it's going to be very, very difficult, really, super, super challenge. I have to say that I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about how productive I can be in this environment, how much time I save to be able to focus on expanding and doing more things. It's just incredible. And I am so proud of the team at our company and how productive we've been. And also, it's just amazing how engaging we are with all kinds of customers. We are. Now, I had a conversation with a CEO of a large SaaS company, and he made a great observation who said, this is the easy part. the part where we're all sitting in front of the screen and we're all able to connect, and you can get Ray, you can get Vala on the screen. That's the hard part is going to be when we're now back in a mode where you're walking down the hall, where you're talking to people, obviously when you're traveling, when you're doing all those other things, people are camped outside of your space where you work. That's going to be a lot more challenging. But my hope is that with this collaboration technology, we'll all be a little bit more sensitive to those work at home employees and those employees that are working in this mode. But we'll see.
It's a great point. Hey, one of the things that you guys keep talking about, which is really important, is this digital first mentality, this digital first approach. How far are we from there? I mean, this is just the beginning, right? Having the virtual conferences, virtual meetings, but then as we get to ideation and prototyping and sales and things that were traditionally in your face that were kind of very, very tactile, are we there yet? Or what else needs to happen?
We had as you know, Ray, we have a long, long way to go. I mean, we believe that sort of the real acceleration in creating digital first organizations is but pre-COVID, we were looking at that happening in 2022, 2023, 2024. That's been pulled in as a result of COVID. I think you're going to see massive accelerations in things like additive manufacturing, in things like in 3D manufacturing beyond prototyping, rethinking of supply chains. I mean, it's interesting because when you look at the industries that are only reliant on technology, those were already moving relatively quickly. But then when you start breaking down the barriers in industries that are heavily, heavily regulated, those industries are now, I think, ripe for disruption with digital. And I'll give you a tangible example of that, which is telemedicine. So in telemedicine, when you think about what a doctor could say, a doctor would say, hey, look, I'm a doctor. I'd love to treat patients across any geographical, theater, if you will. But the insurance company might have a very different opinion. You're based in Illinois. Don't you dare talk to that customer in Iowa. They're kind of, and that's kind of where regulation and unnatural business practices kind of get in the way. But I think that when you bring the intelligent edge, 5G and telemedicine and a pandemic all together, you've got a recipe for a whole new way to treat patients in the future. And I think that that's just one example of how we probably have jumped ahead 2 years. And I think we're just going to go a whole lot faster going forward.
And those emergency certifications work. I know a lot of people in the telehealth industry, and they've been able to go across state lines because it's emergency, but they go away once the emergency is over. So
exactly. Well, or do they? Or do they?
Right?
Customers simply demand and say, you know what? You're not helping me, Mr. or Mrs. Politician. You're not helping me here.
Nope.
When I watch you present your annual futures, technology trend, there's such contextual intelligence in how you develop your thesis. First of all, you have 1,100 analysts debating each other, and then they're going to have to present to you and the leadership team. And the vetting process is ridiculously thorough. But you do talk about impact of politics and market shifts and trends. You're the top person at IDC. We have a lot of CEOs that have been on the show and watched the show. What advice do you have to the top, to the CEOs of companies during these uncertain times? Is there something you can share, based on your learnings of the last 4 months? Of course, you were radical transparency. You said working from home, as a president of IDC, you have to adjust to it. But what a great example, what a great role model. You got 1,100 analysts that listen to you and say, look, if our president is comfortable working from home, we shouldn't, second guess ourselves. We can add value. What other advice do you have to other CEOs?
Yeah, so I mean, I participate and communicate with a number of CEOs on a regular basis about this very thing. Look, I mean, this is about communication and transparency. I made a commitment to our company, which I've kept, which is that every single Friday I would send we have over 2,000 employees. I would send every person a note of my observations of the week, what we need to be focused on, what's happening, What are the trends in the business? And I have lived up to that every single week, where I just wrote it today. And the feedback that I get is unbelievable. Just saying, thank you for being there. Thank you for being so available. I'll get personal notes all weekend long from people who some people will say, look, I live alone. You've given me permission to close the laptop. You've given me permission to have some, so a couple things: communication, empathy. Look, people, this thing is really dangerous, right? I mean, people will not stop working until they fall over, and you got to give people permission to step back, take a walk, take some time, be present with your loved ones, whatever they are, whether that's a person, a pet, children, whatever it is. Be present and engage. It's also really, really important that everyone has to stay connected. I mean the employees. I mean the employees, and then also with our customers. It's a bit of a crude example, but the example I've given a lot is that this is not, as far as us and our relationship with the market's had a tremendous blow to the head. And we know it's medically not true, but what do they say? They say, don't let that person go to sleep, keep that person awake. And so what I've said from day one is we have to keep engaged with our customers. We have to stay engaged. And, we have written our research is up double digit in terms of what we produced during this during this pandemic. We have engaged our customers. We have it's interesting, I have seen innovation, a pivot before my very eyes, the invention of this idea of virtual events, this idea of engaging virtual events all around the world. We are doing hundreds of events around the world with our analysts, with our customers, with IT buyers. And it's so rewarding to see us pivot in that direction and make tremendous amounts of success. And so my job is to highlight those things, to get people connected and to keep people engaged. And I think the more you can do that, from here is really, really important. This is not the time to hide. Hiding is the worst thing that you could possibly do, in my opinion. And look, I'm coming up to the end of year 2 as being president, and I have to say, when I took the job, didn't see the global pandemic coming.
Now, if you did,
I definitely don't feel like the same leader that I was going into this pandemic.
No.
It's been an incredible, experience.
We have one of the industry's legend, Crawford Del Pratt. You can follow him. He is the president at IDC. Follow him on Twitter at CRAW. This is his 3rd appearance on the show. You really need to come back more. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being part of our DisrupTV alumni.
Absolutely. You guys are the best. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Crawford.
Take care, guys.
Stay safe.
Discussions with Crawford feel like 2 minutes. He's got so much. He packs into the time flies. Okay, talk about a brilliant person. It's our privilege to have Francis Frei, Harvard professor and author of Unleashed, the unapologetic leader's guide to empowering everyone around you. Francis is professor at Harvard Business School. She recently served at Uber's first senior vice president of leadership and strategy. We're going to talk about that. Francis's TED Talk, Ray, listen to this, has over 4 million views. We've been doing DisrupTV for 4 years trying to get to 4 million views. She does one talk. That's not fair.
She's done.
Francis Francis was described in a recent Los Angeles Times article as the go-to woman for companies like Uber and WeWork looking to improve their image. She has headlined in all the major publications: New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, USA Today, Washington Post, CNN, you name it. Major media, she's headlined and appeared on those shows. We welcome you to DisrupTV. Thank you for being here, Francis.
Oh, it's such a privilege. And wow, do I like the energy of the two of you combined. Wow.
It's all
Thank
right.
you.
It's all right.
We feed off our guests. We feed off our guests, and it's awesome. And some of the work that you've been doing really around this concept of leadership and trust is really important, right? And you started out with some very gnarly problems, right? I mean, going into a company like Uber and trying to figure out, what the crux of the issue there was in terms of the toxic culture, and you started out with trust of all things. Why was that, and how did you figure out that was the initial root cause?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and what we found is that many of the relationships were breaking down, and so the obvious problem presenting it is that regulators didn't trust us, drivers didn't trust us, like lots of different stakeholders had wary interactions with us. We even found that some of the employees didn't trust us. And so it really became trust is like a vague term almost. I mean, we all said, oh, it's a lack of trust, but it was when we figured out the operational manifestation of it, and that you could really figure out, is it authenticity, logic, or empathy that's getting in the way? We could really make progress quickly by getting there.
Yeah, that's a big deal, and we're definitely seeing that as a underpinning for a lot of executive relationships.
Yeah, no, and what's amazing to us is that if you have a really careful diagnosis, and if you treat trust like you treat every supply chain issue, like if you treat it like any other operational problem, it's in the boundary of leadership, but when we treat leadership problems and get down to their operational detail, I find we can fix them just as quickly. Sometimes we can fix them even more quickly because people are really hungry for a better version.
Yeah, in your book, you argue that the most important thing you do as a leader is to build others up. Yes. You talk about leadership isn't about you. It took me, I think, the first 10 years of managers to figure that out. And it's about how effective you are at empowering other people. And the word empowerment, can you just explain to us, in simple terms, how do you establish a philosophy of empowerment leadership?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, there's a beautiful quote by Toni Morrison, which is, when you earn that power and you gain that power that you so richly deserve, your first act should be to turn around and try to empower other people. And we really mean it in that spirit, that our job is to make others better. We've learned that if you can first do it as a result of your presence and then have it last into your absence, but it's to take our power and leverage it and accelerate it and make it contagious to others.
Somebody asked me what's a good Somebody asked me what's a good culture in a company, and I said, it's what people do when the managers leave the room. Like, do you make the right decisions for the right reasons at the right time in the absence of authority? Yeah. If you have that, then you've got a beautiful culture. And I think,
and actually, I think there's two things that can drive the behavior when the manager's not in the room. And we try to make this argument in the book. It's strategy and culture. So if you think about, like, how am I guided when you're not here? It's my understanding of the strategy, and everywhere where strategy is silent, it's my understanding of the culture. And so I'm not saying one is more important than the other. I am saying they're both needed so that for how we behave when the manager's not there. I'll just say an interesting thing is that every board of directors I've ever interacted with, very, very deeply involved with strategy. Not yet, but I think becoming just as deeply involved in culture. And I think that's when we know we'll have gotten there, because they're both equally important, and a board's obligation, I think, is to address both of them.
Yeah, and we've weighted the boards very, very differently over the years to be heavy on the strategy and light on the operations. And I think we've paid in it in terms of both on the performance side of the equation as well as the culture. And you talk a lot about this empowerment leadership that's really important. And that's kind of the crux of a lot of this, is like that empowerment leadership. How do you drive that? Right?
Yeah.
How do you encourage that?
Yeah, and so I think so, our book is really a how-to manual. So the first thing to do is to create a sense of trust, and the reason we need to do that is that we believe human progress is accelerated when we trust one another. If you trust me, I've earned it. It's my obligation to get you to trust me. Similarly, it's your obligation to get me to trust you. So the accountability of trust, I think it's important. But and you know, when you have trust, you get the benefit of the doubt. You don't have to relitigate things. Like everything works faster, smoother, and you can aim higher. So the first thing is to establish a foundation of trust, and we show exactly how to do it. The second part is, how can I set one other person up for success? How can I empower one other person? And we've learned some counterintuitive things about how to do that. And then the third part is, okay, I can do it for one person at a time. Now, how can I do it for a whole team, a whole region, a whole organization? Quite honestly, we think it goes to a whole nation. But how can I set up more and more varied people at once? And the big unlock here is that if we can take advantage of more variation, we will thump everyone else, to use a quite technical term.
We got a great quote from one of our friends. One of our great friends is saying, "Trust is quickly lost and slowly gained." So
I think you can quickly gain it.
You can quickly gain it.
Yeah, so I think when we used to think about trust as an amorphous thing and we didn't understand its component parts, it would take a long time. But now that we know its component parts, we can say, that was an empathy aspect. Empathy got in your way. Logic got in your way. Oh, and for you, it was the substance of the logic. For you, you have great logic, but it was the communication of it. We now understand its component parts so well, we can actually gain trust quite quickly.
Wow. This is super powerful.
You know, it's I mentioned this in the previous segment with Crawford Del Pratt that, you know, you have a pandemic, nothing that any of us on the show have experienced in our lifetime. You have an economic crisis. You have, you still have climate concerns. You have a race crisis that's, you know, frankly, what we've witnessed in the last several months in video is incredibly troubling, and then you have lack of leadership. So there is a deficit of trust given the combination of things that we're all facing, including being at home for 4 months and in this new norm that none of us thought about in January of this year. So when we talk about culture in this now even more digital, even more hyper-connected knowledge-sharing economy, your culture is now your brand. And your brand value is now defined even more in terms of diversity and inclusion and equality. What advice do you give to companies like Uber or any company that you've advised in terms of the importance of culture, given the fact that we're now more connected than perhaps ever before, and people are determining the discretionary spend and whether they're going to do business with your company, not just based on your product, but your culture?
So the first thing I'd say is that I think everything you just said is great news. I agree with all of it, and I think it's wonderful that culture is not just in the nooks and crannies of our organization, but it's also spilling over to our customers. Like, one of my favorite things that happened at Uber was when the riders got fed up with how we were treating drivers. I just love that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like
awesome.
that. It's really awesome because it's going to bring out the best version of all of us. And so I really like the communal aspect of it. And the advice I give to people is, like, we do a quick culture diagnostic to understand whether or not you have a culture problem. But if you have one and you call that, we then talk about how to overcome it. And here's how we do it. We can describe it simply. It doesn't mean you can execute it simply, but we can describe it, which is, first, uncover the devastating data. That is, what is the evidence that you have a cultural problem? And the reason I want to see the evidence is because I want to know when to celebrate, when the evidence is, when the gaps that are there, and that's usually it's a gap from where we want to be and where we are, or perhaps between one group's thriving and another. I want to know what it is now so we can know how to celebrate at the end. So that's the first thing, is collect the devastating data. The second part is super counterintuitive, which is collect the devastating data and don't share it broadly yet. Now, like, everyone has this quest of, we want to be more transparent. I do too, except when I know that if I give you data without any way to process it, it takes about 2 years for an organization to digest the data. So we say collect the data, and then very quickly do lots of pilots so that you can show some progress. So we say pilot the optimistic way forward. Come up with a pilot that shows that you can make progress on it, and then give the data and the pilot to people. Because if you just give the data, oh my gosh, people are going to say, did you collect it like this? We need more data. How did you ask the question? Oh, and if you do it for an academic institution, like 2 years is the minimum.
Yeah.
So I think just wait 4 weeks before releasing the data and pilot an optimistic way forward, just a small pilot, unleash that into the community, and then let the community blow your mind by how much collective progress they can make.
You know,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh,
my
go ahead,
wife has worked at Central Administration in Harvard for 20 years. So context and optimism and all of that is very important.
Yeah.
Very important.
No, we're getting some great comments here. People are asking, a good understanding of the word of trust. Consumers are making choices based on their brand values. I mean, these things are all popping up. And this really gets into this concept around authenticity. And in the book, right, you say that everyone has a wobble in authenticity, that little point where they're just unsure about, is that authentic enough? Is that too authentic? Right, coming into that regard. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, so, we have advice for the people that are like not at all authentic, like how to first become authentic. And then we have a different bit of advice for people who are like totally authentic, and we'd like them to trim it back a little bit.
Tone it just a little bit.
A little bit. Like, you just don't need all of it. You trim it and leave a little bit at home. So the message to them is, wow, that's a lot. But the message, I don't want people on the other end to hear that advice, because for these folks, if you're not bringing your authenticity and you're just like us, it's not a huge cost. But if you represent a different perspective, a different learning, a different understanding of the customer, and you're not bringing your full self, wow, we're going to pay a very big price for that. But here's the tricky thing we learned about authenticity. I'm going to vow to be more authentic. That's great. But you know what really helps? If you set the conditions for my authenticity to flourish. So each of us has an obligation, I believe, to set the conditions that makes it super welcome for other people's authenticity to flourish. And when we do that, holy cow.
That's awesome. I did 2 words, Ray, I heard that I haven't heard or used in a long time: thump and wobble. So this is 2 good words. I'm going to add it to I love that, wobble. And thump. I love thump. I always say smart people use simple language. I love it. Okay, so I'm a first-gen immigrant refugee, and one of the reasons I joined my current company is I felt a sense of belonging and mattering based on my interaction with the company. I just thought they were inclusive, and there was diversity of everything: gender, age, thought. I saw people that looked like me. It just felt good. So how do you advise companies to create this, and or perhaps reinforce their organization's commitment to inclusion and diversity and equality? What are some ways that companies can really think about that more deeply?
Yeah, so how you
a little bit on the WeWork experience as well. So
yeah, I'll do that. So, and how you just phrase it is exactly the right way to do it, which is inclusion and diversity. I find when we say diversity and inclusion, we sometimes get misleading, because I can bring in diversity, but if I'm not inclusive, it's not going to make progress. But if I learn, if I learn how to be inclusive, I promise you the diversity will flourish. So I almost wish the first person who had said it with the imprinting said I and D. I also love how Tony Prophet at your organization does it when he brings in a beautiful, more extended version of it. But if you think about when we went to WeWork to do it, and I was involved in WeWork at a very optimistic time. And so it was when they were doing very well. That's when I got brought in. I was there also in the failed IPO. But when I was brought in, here's a company that's doing very well. And really well. And they were like, you know what? We don't like the demographic tendencies of our senior team. That is, the whole organization, for example, is 50% women. But we're not 50% women at the top. And it can't be that we then have only the best people. Like, we probably have the best people of the demographics that we're going after, but we would like help in thinking about how to attract and retain awesome women. And their goal was to have 50%. So this is a company that had really modest success. And so we piloted that in one area of the organization and got past 50%. And it was because they were so open-minded about, if I don't know how to recruit women, and I haven't been successful at recruiting executive women, I should probably stop doing everything I've been doing to recruit people. So even though I said I'm recruiting people, I was really just recruiting men. I didn't say that's what I was doing, but that's all that was coming out of the outcome. So then when we said, well, how would we recruit women? And the big unlock there is, how do you recruit people that you don't already know? And when you recruit people you don't already know, you open up a whole new world. And so we worked with them to help them do it, but now they can do it. We worked with them so that they can do it. Now they do it in our absence, and they can do it just as well as we could have helped them in the beginning. So I found that part to be, the audacity of WeWork, the audacity of Uber. I'm really drawn to the audacity. I understand human failings, and I know I know how to make and how to help companies make tremendous progress. But I have to tell you, I loved the audacity that they were going after in that, and they showed that it was possible. And it takes, no meaningful change takes more than a year in my mind. I might be exaggerating, but hardly at all. If you're going to do something meaningful, you get 1 year.
Wobble, thump, and audacity all at once.
I love that. Professor Frei, you crushed it. It feels like we talked for a minute.
I feel like it was a minute.
But Ray, when we talk about remarkable language, just the notion of the order of the words. I never thought about that. That if you actually believe in inclusiveness, the other part probably will take care of itself. It's just the order. Yeah, wow, what a aha moment. My mind is wobbling right now.
He's been thumped. So wait, real quick, before we end, what's one thing any leader can do to start applying the principles in Unleash tomorrow? If they had to choose one, where should they start with?
Read your book.
I'll say, when you walk into a room, don't be self-distracted, be other distracted. You are the least interesting person when you walk in the room as a leader.
Very, very powerful.
Wow.
All right. We're here with Frances Frei, Harvard professor and author of Unleashed, the Unapologetic Leader's Guide to Empowering Everyone Around You. So follow her at Harvard HBS, and of course, catch the book on Harvard Business Press, Harvard Business Review Publishing. I got to get it right. They were my publisher. So, hey, thanks for being on the show. And of course, happy Friday.
Same to you.
Thank you so much. Wow. That was awesome. Ray, come on now. That was ridiculously good. Yeah, this is why we always have you as our finishing guest, because, we just want you to bring it home after 2 extraordinary.
Because we're usually speechless by this point in time. So.
and I'm scribbling notes here during her whole thing. I go,
yeah,
that's great.
Oh my God, she was so good. She was so good. Okay, proper introductions. We have Heather Clancy, Editorial Director of GreenBiz Group. Heather is an award-winning journalist specializing in transformative technology and innovation. As Editorial Director of GreenBiz, Heather covers the role of technology in enabling clean energy, sustainable business strategy, and low-carbon economy. In addition to GreenBiz, Heather's articles have appeared, again, all over the place. Fortune, New Yorker, Entrepreneur, everywhere.
I wish the New Yorker, but I'll work on that.
She's the co-author of, New York Times. New York Times. I have New York Times. I read New Yorker. Heather is the co-author of the Amazon bestseller for entrepreneurs, Niche Down How to Become Legendary by Being Different.
Legendary.
Heather is a great follow on Twitter. Legendary. Great follow on Twitter at Green Tech Lady. And this is your 16th appearance on DisrupTV. Welcome back, Heather.
Thank you for having me.
And what did you think of the last 2 segments? It's an honor to have you back.
Well, yeah, I mean, because actually, I mean, you read my title. I'm a journalist, but I'm also in the middle of this incredible transformation in my own company. We're an events company. So yeah, we're pivoting as well. We're in the middle of and it's so inspiring and terrifying and overwhelming. And yeah, I mean, it's I shouldn't say interesting, because I know that has bad connotations, but it is quite inspiring and terrifying simultaneously.
Well, hey, there's a lot going on, right? As we think about digital events and how people are being brought together, and that has completely shifted, but the issues are still the same, right? I mean, you recently put something out there that was very important, right? We're talking about e-waste, right? Electronic waste recycling. There's that Morgan Stanley report. Let's go a little deeper into that story to understand what's going on, because we all know it's a great idea, but what's going on?
So, I mean, as we know, the pandemic has created a very difficult situation for recycling. And I'll speak specifically about the electronics recycling. We might get into plastics in a moment, but I got into this particular line of journalism 12 years ago now, and I was focusing on this issue, electronic waste, at that time. And frankly, it hasn't really changed all that much. The biggest problem, I think, if you want to take one simple thing, what's holding it back, it's the collection. It's how do you get this stuff back to a place where it can be processed, and not just recycled, but refurbished. If you think about it, and this is what gets me excited about the possibilities right now. The digital divide has never been more glaringly obvious than right now. I mean, if you think about all of the families that are trying to homeschool, remote school, however you want to say it, their kids, one of the biggest issues that I know, all my teacher friends, is that many of these families have one thing. And you have parents that are trying to work, and you have kids that are trying to learn, and everyone's trying to submit their homework or their assignments or whatever on one computer. And there's definitely very profound inequities across the United States, and I'm sure in other countries. I'm not expert, but if you bring it back to this, think of all those devices now that we could be putting into the hands of people. So there's a tremendous opportunity to take those devices, get them back into the hands of people that really need them. And there are, I think it was the IDC numbers. I noticed that the IDC PC numbers were up in this quarter, way more than last year. And you can see that we need to get this technology out there. So if you take it full circle, the biggest issue right now is that, with the exception of some very large companies that have taken a leadership position on this, Apple, Samsung, Dell, that are collecting or making it easier to collect these systems, there's not that much going on. I mean, it's really hard to get it back. So,
wow.
There you go. Yeah, you wrote that, it's, first of all, for context for our audience, 50 million tons of electronic and electrical waste produced annually. And that is more than all of commercial airliners have manufactured ever. So that's just mind-numbing.
You know what the kind of good thing about that statistic, though, is, Vala? Just one thing on that. It is about the same as 12 years ago, but you think about it, we are using a lot more than 12 years ago. So I don't know.
Okay, so
it could be more. I mean, it could actually be more than that. That's kind of a good news thing, right? And I spoke this. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say I spoke with this. That if you there's a really cool company in Los Angeles called Homeboy Industries, right? And one of their big business models is for the various business units. They go out into the community and they do workforce development programs, particularly with formerly incarcerated individuals. And they had an electronics recycling component that really focused on that. And Hewlett Packard works with them to handle some of their programs. And I'm sure there's others that I'm not mentioning that'll get mad at me now. But the woman who was running that company is now in an organization on the East Coast called Retriever. And what they're starting to do, their first market is Philadelphia. They're going to houses and picking up this stuff. Not just electronics, they're also going to work on clothing, which is a whole nother area to discuss. But I think with people thinking about, not just recycling this stuff, but repairing it and making it and extending the life of it, getting it. And so that's all. So these conversations are much more active right now than they have been in a long time. And that's good. That's a really good thing.
Doug Henschen is saying Governor Murphy of your home state has just announced huge investment in closing the digital divide.
Awesome.
So we'll
Thank you, Doug. Yeah.
in the piece that you wrote, there was reference to the survey outcome. I think it was 10,000 people that were surveyed, but more than half said they recycled old electronic devices. That was up 24% from 2 years ago. 80% of the respondents reported that they had repaired a device. And then this one that surprised me: 70% had bought or planned to buy refurbished ones. Now I know I repaired my Dell laptop last time I had an issue with it. And this is an iPhone 7, so I've been with this guy. And my company keeps sending me notes. You're ready for a new laptop. You're ready for a new phone.
Yeah.
I'm all set. I'm good. I'm good with what I have. But anything surprising to you in terms of repairing and buying refurbished and
No,
recycling?
I mean,
or is this what you expected?
Well, it's what it makes me think about it. And my husband's a great example of this. He hates new stuff. Like, he gets used to using one thing and he doesn't want the other thing. He wants a new version of that old thing. So he'll be the person that gets that kind of device. But also, I mean, back to this thing with kids and family and parents, you know, you don't necessarily need the latest, greatest laptop to have the homework done. You need a good, solid working machine. Why not? So I think it didn't say what they were buying them for, that survey, but it didn't surprise me at all. I think people are, and the economic situation is such that people are like, hey, I need to do this. I need to be budget conscious about this. I need to do it in the best way for me.
Yeah, you know, there's been some great recycling programs where they do scrub the drives, keep everything there, get someone a brand new drive, you know, from a data protection perspective, you know, and you're right, some of those leading manufacturers have been helping out to drive that, but there needs to be a lot more work there. You know, but another issue that's popping up that we keep seeing, like, this is post-pandemic, right? I mean, single-use plastics are up. Masks are everywhere, right?
Yeah.
We're creating a lot more waste in these sorts of products than we were before. What have you guys been seeing there? Like, what have you guys been researching around that? Because, you know, it's anything from like the gels to like the single packets to all the new plastic bags that are coming back again after those were being banned. I mean, it's crazy. So, I mean, it feels like we've gone the other direction, or has it improved that net because we're driving less?
I think it was I do think it has been reactionary, and for people were frightened, right? People were afraid and they were misinformed, and you know how bad the data has been on everything, and you never know who's telling you the truth, and you can't get good number. I mean, it's just been ridiculous, the lack of federal leadership on this. But California is now putting their ban back in place. Did you see that? I'll go back to another thing.
I did.
I think a couple weeks ago. And I do think that it's right for people to be concerned about safety and sanitation and so forth. But I do feel, and actually another great example, Loop. I've talked about them before. They're the division of TerraCycle that does the reusable containers and so forth. They just launched in the UK. So they didn't post that. Launch went off. It was postponed a couple months because of the situation, just generally speaking. I think that was more of a logistics and operational concern, though, than a like, oh my gosh, will people buy into reusable containers? I think the horse is out of the barn, or whatever you want to say with it. I do think, yes, people reacted, and absolutely the waste issue is just ridiculous. It disgusts me. I mean, I just cannot understand why people would throw this stuff on the ground. And I think, but I do think I see a lot of reusable masks coming into place now that you can wash, and they're going to be with us a long time. I think there's some very, very creative companies that have popped up that are making or, you know, taking things that were meant for another purpose and reselling them and making them available to consumers as rather than a particular community of medical professionals or something. I do think that the conversations around safety are super important, and maybe they weren't happening enough before. I will say that I like that about it, but I don't think it's going to be forever. I think we're going to keep moving forward on this one.
Sure. And you know, there has to be a greater sense of accountability and trust today, more so than ever, and even more so when brands engage with you as an award-winning journalist, because they now know that you actually go back and assess whether they met their promises. So AMD in 2014 said that they were going to improve their energy efficiency of their mobile processors, and they committed to a 25-time improvement. 2014. 6 years later, you go and check, and they're actually at 32 times, 31.7.
Who's tracking this stuff? Like, who actually tracks this stuff?
Well, okay, so to be clear here,
Congrats.
I am not that good about this thing. I often let things slide. No. This is remember that transparency we were talking about a little while ago. And you don't want to be too transparent, but you want to be transparent. Well, they have been very transparent about this. And for every year since they made that goal, have reported on it and given progress, given themselves a scorecard, and they highlighted to me that they had done this. But I was like, oh my God, you're right, you have done this. So but it just made me think. We deserve to know. We deserve to know how people did, even if they didn't make it, because the companies that are trying to be better need to know where they're going to run into potential hiccups. Because if they don't, they're going to make the same mistakes, and it'll take just longer. And if everyone shares where they're making mistakes, we can kind of all learn together and start pushing this forward more quickly.
There's a lot of shared learnings out there.
And what I really loved about this goal was that it took everyone, right? They made it an engineering kind of challenge. They got all the engineers stoked up to do it, and we're saying try this, and it became a point of innovation. So, that was
I like long-term thinking and planning. I like publicly announcing your long-term plan and then measuring along the way. It's just, to me, it should be considered a best practice in terms of how you build trust. We talked about last segment how you build trust with stakeholders. I think it's a very good example, and kudos for you to covering that and bringing awareness to other companies who want to better understand what best practice looks like in terms of accountability.
So, hey, one last question coming from the audience, and I thought that was a great one here from Kabilan, really talking about how to break geographical and especially political barriers to ensure recycling of electronics to ensure a green world for all. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we send off our producer properly, since it is our last show.
Okay.
So what do you think? How do we get to that problem?
Wow, that's a big one. How do we break geographical and especially political barriers?
Because we used to just ship that off to someone else and they take
we're not going to ship
whatever
that
country
off.
was willing to do that, and we're not doing that right now.
Hey, here's the thing. I mean, these could be really good jobs, right? I mean, I went to the homeboy recycling thing. I mean, I think we have been thinking about recycling as this thing over on the side. We have not thought about just the whole municipal recycling infrastructure as an opportunity. If we could put people to work handling this stuff, if we could bring the chemical recycling advances that are happening,
the rare earths too.
I mean, there is so much opportunity here. If you think about I hate to keep bringing them up, but I will. Apple, they're doing amazing things with aluminum. So I feel like it's a skills thing. I think we've always looked at this as someone else's problem. It's our problem. Yeah. And if we invested at the state, I mean, I know there's various states that, if you think about producer responsibility, I think there's about half of them have laws that require it. Half don't. Well, get on. Hey guys, what are you waiting for? Get on it. And think of it as a job opportunity. Think of it as, even with the automation that's going to happen here, there is just so much opportunity. So I don't know. I don't have a specific. I'm not a policy expert, but I think we're looking at it the wrong way.
This is great. I mean, if you want, let's take different perspectives to get there. We're here with Heather Clancy, Editorial Director of GreenBiz Group. And of course, you can follow her on Twitter. Most interesting articles at Green Tech Lady. And also check her out at greenbiz.com. But also, thank you for being here. It's your 16th appearance.
Yeah. Bye, Aubrey.
Thank you for being here. So we're going to bring in, we're going to bring in our producer, bring her back onto the show. She's popped herself in, and we want to send you off. And I want to thank you for starting with us on the show, and of course ending on a super amazing note. I mean, we're doing as many as 10,000 views on that one. Just getting to 600 guests, like all scheduled, produced, everything. So Aubrey, I want to thank you for the amazing work. More importantly, getting a show launched from scratch to where it is today. I can only imagine where we were 4 years ago. I mean, you joined us 5 years ago, so it's been an amazing ride. Vala, anything on your end? So,
this show wouldn't exist without you. Just point blank. You know, you create an environment where Ray and I just show up. I know personally, it's not, you know, you matured to a point where you didn't need my input, you didn't need Ray's, you knew the right guests, you know, the right mix, you knew the right topic, you knew how to engage with them gracefully. We have some of the most accomplished men and women around the world that have been on our show, inventors of technology, inventors of businesses, Fortune 100 CXOs, founders of unicorn businesses, best-selling authors, 4-star generals, you know, Pulitzer Prize winners, Emmy Award winners like Kari Anderson. And you did that on your own. You left the entire logistical production, even the shape of the narrative, because you worked with all of our guests to make sure that we cover their books and the questions and the stories that they want to share, not what Ray and I want to share, really, because they're the experts of their stories. And you did that with grace, with dignity, with accountability. And you made it super easy for us, because both Ray and I have our day job, and without an amazing producer, I can tell you, I couldn't do this. So thank you for doing 99.9% of the heavy lifting, and then just allowing for Ray and I to show up for an hour, talk and engage with amazing people. And I just want people to know, without you, the show wouldn't exist. That's just fact.
Wow. Thank you so much, Aubrey.
I was thinking back, you know, 4.5 years ago when Ray came to me, he's like, do you want to start a podcast or a show? I'm like, I've never done one. Sure. And then maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, we kicked off our first episode with Whitney Johnson. And then we are almost 200 episodes now. So it's been a long journey to learn how to do this properly. And I'm glad it's successful in providing, you know, great advice and feedback and lots of lessons learned over the last 4.5 years. So I thank you guys for letting me join the journey. And I'm sad to leave this work right now.
It's the best part of the week for Ray and I. I speak for Ray because we keep saying that out loud. So you helped create something that's our favorite part of the week, and wish you the best of luck. And I hope you watch the show.
She's gonna play some guests. She'll play some guests on our show. I think we might give her some producer privilege or some privilege there. We'll see.
You'll always be a founding member of DisrupTV, always. So that footprint that you left behind will be there forever. So thank you on behalf of our guests and everyone.
On behalf of the guests, DisrupTV, Constellation Research, everyone who's been watching, thank you so much. So really, really thankful of you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. We are closing out. We are on episode 199. Can you believe that? Yeah. 199 is coming. It's actually not the right count. Vala will keep reminding us. We're probably on episode 210, given all the special shows from Davos or, Sales Machine, some other things. Well, on the road, we've done special editions. But officially, episode 199. Who do we have? We got some great people on this one.
Well, what we can say is next week is our 199th Friday episode. So we've had 199 Friday episodes. We've had probably a dozen special shows, but we wanted to just focus on our, 3 guest regular Friday episodes. For episode 199, we have Miguel Gamino, Executive Vice President, Enterprise Partnerships, and Head of Global Cities at MasterCard. He's got a big job and he's got lots of responsibilities. Karen Mangia, Vice President, Customer and Market Insights in Salesforce. One of the smartest people I know, one of the best storytellers. She's got a book coming out in August. She did the book, started it in June. It's going to be launched, I think, first week in August. Record time for a book. We'll talk about that. And of course, Jonathan Reichenthal, who, Dr. Reichenthal, Ray and I have known him for years. He's the author of Smart Cities for Dummies, and we're going to talk about simplifying the concepts and principles of what it means to build future cities. So he's a great
the former CIO of the city of Palo Alto.
Yeah, exactly. I talk about being a CIO of Palo Alto. Talk about, but everyone in the city thinks they know more than you. So anyway, that's episode 199. And we look forward to having you join us next Friday. Ray, your closing remarks.
Hey, it's been a milestone. We're getting to 200. I think this is amazing. I really thank everybody for listening here. Whether you're watching live on the tapings Friday, 11 a.m. 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, whether you're on Apple Podcasts listening to us, of course, if you're on YouTube, Periscope, and of course, any other place like SoundCloud, please check us out. And thank you for being with us every Friday and giving us your time. Vala, you're in? You're good?
Thanks, everyone. See you next Friday.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, we're good.
All
See you
right.
next Friday. Thanks.
See you next Friday.